first, talking with a group, and then they're going to answer the question and engage in the discussion, because we're trying to promote more thoughtful discussion, right? Thoughtful discussion that captures more participation. So we started with the gallery walk, which we saw was flexible, fairly flexible, and you can have mixed abilities. So high performers, low performers, they're in a group, they're brainstorming, and it had two parts. First, when they're just writing and responding to the image, which could be a picture, a word, or a short. And then the second part, when the teacher's going to ask them probing questions and simply ask them to explain, give me an example, what were you thinking? Then we did the rating activity. Remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, agree, strongly disagree. And the purpose of that is, again, I think the discussion is going to be more successful when they have something specific. In the rating activity, they're referring specifically to the statement, right? The same thing with the ranking activity. They're trying to decide which of these is the most heroic or the most whatever it is you're trying to define, and then generate a definition. But you keep returning to the text, so that keeps the conversation probably more focused, okay? So those were the three activities. Then of the three, the last one was the most difficult, I think, because it required a lot more analysis. Now, all of these are just a pretext for discussion. We're just trying to create a context and pretext for discussion. All right, so today, we're going to move to discussion circle, okay? But before we do we have any questions or comments from yesterday, or did you prepare a gallery walk? Thank you. Did you all prepare a gallery walk? Did you have time to do it? If not, did you all have time to think about that? It's okay if you didn't. We can do one tomorrow for the solitary reaper. Oh, that's fine. But let's do this then. Let's do the discussion circle, okay? So when you have a discussion circle, and in your handbooks, we have a complete explanation of discussion circles. But we'll just walk through it and do it together. Basically, when you have this discussion circle, you have a small group of students who have the discussion, and the rest of the students are doing focused listening, and then they provide feedback. Then we switch places, okay? So the discussion circle does two things. It engages us in speaking and listening, right? Because part of, I think, the challenge, part of the challenge of the discussion is not only linguistic, it's interaction, right? So we want to, we want students not only to develop their language, but their interactional abilities so that they can interact in an academic setting. So with the discussion circle, it's not only what the group is doing that's having the discussion, but the feedback we provide, what we learn from their interaction, and then we repeat the discussion. We have a new group, okay? So, we're going to do two things to prepare. First, we have to decide what we're going to talk about, right? What will be the topic? Now, I think it's better, again, remember the principles we talked about discussion. We want to have a discussion that's somehow related to the curriculum, aligned with the curriculum. But at the same time, we want to allow for some student choices, right? Because when students have some input as to what the discussion is going to be about, right? Then there's probably more chance that they'll have higher levels of motivation, right? So let's think about, is Nancy still here? Or she went to make it. Did anybody bring a copy of their textbook? Okay.
Remove from the
Okay, let's look at the opening question.
Only this one is supposed to be text.
And this one is for the
Copy notes. It is copy is a different text.
Okay.
And the solution for this is second year we have common text.
Let's use the second year then. Yes? Okay. So everybody uses this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. let's-
Goes every
Okay, so let's do it on solitude. Isolation.
Okay.
Yeah? Yeah?
Solitary reaper.
Solitary Reaper? Can we do it? Let's do that one tomorrow. So if we were doing Unit 6, no man is an island. Oh, you don't do that?
Shaking hands.
Okay, shaking hands? You all do shaking hands? Okay, let's do it that way. Chapter on shaking hands is about, alright, let's say we were going to have a discussion which is going to prepare the students for this unit. Or we were going to have a discussion that was going to wrap up the unit on shaking hands. So thinking about the unit on shaking hands, what's the idea behind this unit? Friendship, interaction, social interaction. Okay. So what I'd like you to do we have a marker still? On shaking hands. And the theme that we're looking at is social interaction. Right? Or community, society, right? Now, what we're going to do first is in your group, I want you to develop one. So here's the theme, social interaction. I want each group to develop one question about social interaction that you would like to discuss with the group. So it needs to be open-ended, right? Then we're going to write all the questions down and we'll vote on which question we want to discuss together. So this is what I mean by negotiating the question with the students. Now, it serves two purposes. First, it helps students begin that process of formulating questions. Sometimes this is really important in post-secondary education, that students are able to formulate questions. So what's a question that we can discuss about social interaction? Two, if students are involved in creating the discussion, the topic, right, then there's going to be higher levels of motive that you want to discuss together as colleagues. Okay? Shall we write one question together? Just to model it. And that's another thing. When you ask your students to do something, model first what you want them to do. So let's think about what's a good question about social interaction. Okay, do you have a question in mind? Or you want, yes? Go ahead.
What are the difference between them?
Okay. What?
Social interaction.
In your community.
Yes.
And, so this is descriptive. So we want to add maybe a second part, so it's going to be more analytic, right? And how do these customs, so this is descriptive, and we also want to add a part 2 so it's more analytic, right? How do these customs constrain or enable, right, women? Right? I think this would be analytic, right? So we're looking at what are the customs, and let's make it more specific. Young women, young men and women, if you want to make it more inclusive, like maybe it also constrains young men. So first, so there you have a great question, and it has two parts. What are these customs? And then how do you think these customs constrain or and or enable young men and women in Indian society. Or you can make it more specific, in Hyderabad communities. Yes? That would be a nice, do you think that's a nice question? Okay. So that's a model. Now you develop questions, and it's up to you, because it's important that the question be something you want to talk about. All right? Let's take a couple minutes, talk about it, and I'm going to write all the questions down, then we're going to vote. All right? Questions? All right, go ahead. Now during this stage, right? During this stage, the teacher's going to go around and... What? Or then how does a formal greeting? What's the and then even how, yeah.
See that we have the age factor.
Okay, you want me to write that one? Go ahead and finish that one, and then we'll write it down. What's your?
Regarding their
What a common way of students greeting each other. Yeah, I like that. Okay. have some more questions? Okay, I like these questions very much. Okay, so any other questions? Now, you don't have to vote for your team. You can change questions. So we have 5. Ready? So show me your 5 papers. Okay. So number 1, let's just read it first. What are the customs of social interaction in your community, and how do such customs constrain or enable young men and women? What are the common ways that students interact with each other regardless of caste, creed, religion? The way you greet someone indicates your interest in that person. What are some of the qualities that go with a handshake? Should there be a common way of social interaction in Indian society? Explain and describe. How do gestures communicate or not communicate respect for others? Right? They're all great questions, right? Okay, so did you decide which one you like the best? Okay? Some of them are similar. Let's combine for that person. What are some of the qualities that go with a handshake that indicate interest and interest and respect? Okay? So that's we can combine those two. So now, who likes number 1? What are the customs of social interaction in your community? How do such customs constrain and enable young men and women? Now we're gonna vote. Anybody? Okay, good. And that's why it's not good for the teacher to write the question. Do you see what I think is interesting? So that's why you want to have the students involved. Do you see what I mean? So that's an example of why teachers shouldn't always create the question. Students interact with each other regardless of caste, creed, religion. Anybody? 2? Okay, you're being very shy today. Let's erase that. The way you greet someone indicates your interest in and respect for that person. What are some of the qualities that go with a handshake that indicate interest or respect? Should there be a common way of social interaction in Indian society? Explain and describe. 1 or 2? 1 or 2? Okay, show me. 1 or 2? Let's have a vote. Or those, right? What do you say? 1 or 2? Let's see your finger. 1 or 2? 1 or 2? Or you like both? Let's see, 1 or 2. It looks like 1 is the one. Is 1 okay? Let's go with 1. Alright, so now I want you to go home and write one paragraph, 10 sentences about this to share in your group. And then you'd have the small group discussion. So everybody, let's copy this down on a piece of paper. We can pass it to the front. Take some paper for your tape, right? Here's some paper for your group for the next couple days. Interest in that person or respect for that person. And if you assign this for homework, the teacher can get feedback, return the papers, they continue working on it. So that's a way of me saying, okay, I know everybody's prepared or they're struggling some. Let me help them develop their ideas or their language, right? So see, even looking around, I can see that some of you at home are still thinking just beginning. So now I can readjust the time. I think it's going to take maybe 5 minutes to get some ideas, you know. We keep readjusting. So let me see. Well, I think the opposite is if you don't read the person, then you're showing that. Let's see if you don't see what I mean. Right? Just ignoring the person. And can I add another piece here? How do we learn these things? In other words, how did we learn these different ways of interacting respectfully with other people? How do we know this? I think everybody has at least one idea down. And now, okay, so you might have assigned this as homework for students, they come back, maybe you read them, maybe you don't. But now it's time for students to start sharing ideas, so your ideas build off of each other. So what we're going to do now is vote as a starting point. Everybody read what they wrote, and then you start off the discussion that way. Afterwards, select one person from the group to represent, and they're going to be in the discussion, okay? So this is all one. We can treat this as two different groups, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to have 5 representatives at the dais, and they're going to have the discussion. So you can, a person who's going to represent can write down the other ideas, right? So take.
Body language plays a important role. Yes, body language. Mind is
And even we not able to
So you have different ways to read. And where do, I guess the question is, where do you learn this from? Yeah, how do you learn things? You know, how do you know how to read something? Hey, now, you ready? Did you talk a little bit? You have some more ideas now? Alright, so what you want to do is choose someone to represent and then help that person prepare some ideas. Also, one other thing, help the person prepare, pick a representative, and try to pick someone that didn't get to share a lot yesterday, you know, a new person. Not always the same person. And have the group write an additional question related to your point of view. Why would you have them write a question? What we learn in discussion is that if you want to have a good discussion, the participants have to also ask each other questions. See what I mean? So not only should they have their point of view, but questions to bring up in case the conversation slows down or the conversation is not very interesting. Have another question ready, okay, that you can use. So find the person who's going to present, help them prepare their ideas, give them a list, a little bullet list, and also a question. Stare to the dais carefully, right? And bring your name tag. Bring your name tag. So one person from each group. Okay, so the discussion will not be with us, the discussion is between yourselves, like a little family, right? Like a bunch of friends. So you'll have the, right? Now, sometimes, you know, you're taken seriously, which is why you make it public. You see what I mean? The level of the work is always better if they know they're going to have to share it to their classmates. Because, you know, you can be shameless with your teacher, but you have a lot more pride when it involves your, you know, you have your pride for the class. So I like to have the students, in fact, they might submit this later, but I like them to share publicly, okay? Then they're going to have better quality because they know that their classmates will be watching. Do you agree? If it's public, then we work harder because we don't want to be humiliated, right? Okay, the other groups? Come, my friends. Come. Come on. Now, in the audience, we're going to assign tasks to the different groups. All right? So, and these tasks, okay? So you see their names, how many times each person speaks, and how long. So how many times and the duration. This you would give to the okay, if you had a mixed ability group, this would be for the low achievers. Because even if they don't understand, they can count how many times someone speaks, right? but it's a way of being inclusive. Now for the high achievers, I'm going to say, okay, write down the main ideas. That requires much better skills, right? So write down this group, keep track of the main ideas that you hear. Any question you hear. Okay? So each group's going to have something specific to do. Vocabulary related to social interaction. Handshake, friendship. Main ideas. This whole group, main ideas. Whole group. The behaviors you expect in the discussion. Now, it's not a debate, okay? So there's no winner or loser, and it's not a panel session. You're having the discussion amongst yourself. So pretend that we don't exist, okay?
We're not there.
We're not there. You're just, we're the hidden camera. Now also, if you are talking, talk to the whole group. If you ask a question, open it to the whole group. Because we want to have more of a dynamic, realistic interaction, okay? Now, what are some of the things you want to see in this discussion? What are some of the things they have to do?
Icebreaker.
Hmm?
Go for the icebreaker. Who's going to initiate the discussion?
Okay, someone has to initiate it. But the person who initiates isn't the leader. They just started, okay? You're going to see people taking turns. We don't want to see one person hogging up the 10 minutes. So you have to monitor yourself. Make sure I don't talk too much, but make sure at least I talk a couple times. We want to see you inviting each other to speak. You can interrupt, but nicely. We want to see respectful behavior. What else should we see in the discussion? What other
Respond and
interactions?
react.
Respond, react.
Appropriately to the.
Maybe affirming. Oh, yes, that's interesting.
Allowing
That's
others to
important.
speak. Allowing others to speak.
Allowing and encouraging others to speak.
End the discussion nicely and come with an apt conclusion.
Maybe someone's going to wrap it up. We want to hear examples. We're going to hear questions. We're going to hear asking for clarification. Follow-up questions. What else should we see? So it's not simply everybody's going to say their own idea. They have to talk together, right? Anything else that we should look for?
Who's going to see who is reserved, not open.
And then, I mean, in the end, maybe there's no conclusion, but we'll see how far we get, okay? Now, we're gonna try it 1, 2, 3, 4, for 10 minutes. There are 6 of you, right? We wanna make sure everybody gets to participate, but it's more fluid, okay? Just pretend we're not here. Do you have any question? Okay, shall we do it for 10 minutes? Then after the 10 minutes, we're gonna give feedback, and then we're gonna switch places, okay? Y'all ready? Okay. We won't use the microphone for this. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, we have got informal greeting and formal greeting. Informal greeting, when we wish our peer group, we say hi, hello. And for the formal, our teachers, elders, we wish them, we fold with folded hands. We wish them with folded hands, with warm smile on our faces while wishing them. And because they may feel
Okay, talk to each other. Talk to your friend. Yeah.
because they may feel awkward if we give them shake hands, our elders. Yes.
Even this depends upon the social, cultural, and economic and political background of the people. Even shake hand is formal in British and US customs, but in India, it's recently that shake hand has become formal. Earlier, even in the office background and all, we used to say by namaste.
But it also depends on cities and villages. In villages, if we give them our shake hands to our elders, they feel awkward, and it's a sign of disrespecting them. They say that in Telugu, I can say, "Ippude peddu maaku shake hand iche peddodu aina." In that way, they say.
Well, I would like to add a few more points with your statements. Whenever there is familiarity happens, so there won't be any ignorance or inaccessibility without of a greeting. So when a person greets, he should consider different aspects, as she said, socio-cultural and other traits. So in that way, whatever the greeting, it must be a moderate one, articulating with the proper tone and intonation, whatever it may be. The other person must have acknowledged. If there is nothing acknowledgement from other side, he should have another alternative way of greeting. With his body, with his soft skills,
Body language, body
yeah,
language.
we must consider all these aspects when we greet another person. Though it may be a cultural aspect, but with our body gestures, with our manner of articulation, and even pleasant smile, that would really reach to the other side. So this way we can really make accessible with whatever the different type of greet.
No doubt. My point is that in this regard, if we take particularly Indian society, in Indian society, as a diverse society, for community to community, it differs the way of greeting, and the level of emotion, the level of intimacy, the level of respect also differs in the way of greetings. What I mean.
Even it's also different religiously.
Differ from religion to religion,
Religion to
especially
religion.
community to
That is
community.
what we can find as cultural paradigms. Cultural paradigms play a vital role in the process of greeting or wishing. No doubt, without any second opinion, greeting or wishing is a very warm way of coming together. That establishes a wonderful rapport between persons and rolls out the things further in a very smooth and effective manner. So, in the process of greeting, I feel two factors play a very, very crucial role. One is body language, the other is cultural paradigm of the person. And having understood these two things, the person has to be very affectionate, very moderate, very lovable, and above all, he should be very humanistic. Neither be too harsh, nor very coarse, nor very unrefined. So these things matter most in the process of greeting or wishing.
A spontaneous smile happens automatically if you see a friendly person or a person you respect. But if you meet a stranger or if a person you have a tough relationship, then it becomes a frown. So it automatically comes in our gestures and our body language.
Even
So-
when we shake hands, we should shake hand with firm. We should
Firm grip.
yeah, press with
Yeah.
firm.
But you can't do that, woman. I don't want to embarrass here. It should be in a way that really suits, it should have a compatibility, comfortable. And here what she said, okay, it sometimes becomes very, there we have to consider two types of formal and informal. So that we can, okay, he is my officer, there I should be quite modest. I can't be really very cheerful and with a pleasant smile. Just a formal way of greeting, good morning sir, whether he really acknowledges or not.
Actually,
I must have to respond, being my supervisor or my boss.
Actually, oral greeting takes first place, and as far as greeting, shaking hand, I think it takes second place.
Since there is a physical contact.
Yeah, and as such, most of the cultural paradigms or most of the societies do not have this pattern of shaking hands. Some societies view it as an offensive act, an offensive one. But some enjoy it, some receive it, some welcome it. So as such, what I feel is, oral greeting is the first and foremost one, which occupies first place in the process of greeting. And this shaking hand and etc., all these things, bowing head or kissing or
Hugging.
coming together of two heads, all these things, they are
Two
secondary.
cheeks.
Two cheeks.
That's happening in
secondary.
But in contemporary Indian society, shaking hands has become a common phenomenon.
Everybody is accepting.
Even if you observe the students, they come to teachers and they try to shake hands with the teacher when they achieve something.
Actually, what I feel, sir, nobody should shake hand with anybody. As far as greeting is concerned, oral greeting is enough and enough and enough. Because most of the people, they do many things with the hands and they don't wash the hands properly. These days, there is a great danger of transmitting so many viruses, so many such things in the process of shaking hands. So as far as my suggestion goes, please avoid shaking hands.
I completely disagree with you because I have a purpose of something in shaking hands. Then how can I restrict myself?
No, you can express your
We
warmth.
cannot find a common way of greeting.
You can
We have to find
Totally
alternative
different.
Reach my destiny.
I believe that it
Greeting
increases
is
the
meant for that.
intimacy.
You can express your warmth. You can express your warmth through several other means also, not by shaking hands.
Okay, it's very famous culturally, you know.
Famous.
Restaurants.
It all depends upon
It's
individuality.
been really accepted by the different communities, shaking hands.
True, it has become famous, but we have reached to such a stage that we should forthwith immediately stop shaking hands.
Again, we should not oppose. We should be satisfied. We should cooperate with whatever the way that we are going.
Okay, very nice. Let's stop. Okay, it was.
She wants to conclude.
Yeah, certainly.
Whatever it may be, that may be oral or that may be according to the cultural aspect, according to the relationship among the individuals, that must be suitable, that greeting must be suitable according to their religion, according to the society. That should not be looked at, that should according to their intimacy and according to their culture, they have to convey that.
Very nice.
So
Thank
got to
you.
keep in mind the cultural paradigm.
That's right.
In a sense.
Okay, it was great discussion.
That must be genuine.
It has to be genuine. Let's get some feedback from the group, right? Give us the breakdown. How many times and how long? Who did the most? Time.
Yes, 2, 1, 3, 4. And then afterwards,
Maruti followed by
7 times.
Srikanth.
Srikanth.
Yes, Kumar.
How many times?
Maruti 7 times. Srikanth 6 times. S. Kumar 6 times. Followed by Rupna ma'am 4 times. Followed by Jelly 3 times.
Okay.
Umarani has concluded.
Conclude.
Yeah.
The last one.
Professor Spence,
Yeah.
we are the same 12 times. The lead.
Problem though, right? What was the problem?
There was no questions posed by anyone.
They didn't ask questions. Okay, so there were no questions, right?
And
Absolute
gathering
deviation
from
is the main topic.
discussing in the panel.
It became like between these three.
Yeah. Of course. One is
So she was excluded
Exactly.
till we ended it, right? So what do we learn from this? I think this is better than to say you talk too much, you didn't talk enough. What do we learn from this, from watching this, about sharing the participation?
Not involving each and everybody in the discussion.
Yeah, so you have to invite your friends, and you have to monitor yourself. Okay, let me stop, and let me invite this friend. Because that's part of having, that's the responsibility of everyone. And also, if you haven't gotten a chance to speak, you have to interrupt politely, right?
Not
Like maybe with your body language, just raise your hand, right? And we have to recognize, okay, I think I've already, you might even keep track of how many times you speak. And once you reach a certain number, wait. You see what I mean? So that's powerful feedback. Now, there were no questions. No questions.
No questions.
So that's a little bit of a problem too, because the discussion's going to be even better if you start asking questions, not only giving your opinion. Vocabulary related to social interaction. Did you hear some? What was some of it? Go ahead, Nancy.
We have noted down. One is cultural paradigm
Yeah, that was a big one, huh?
and frown
Frown.
and transmitting
Mhm.
and intimacy,
Yes.
Customs. Body language.
body language, humanistic and unrefined, coarse, affectionate.
It was really rich in vocabulary. I thought it was rich discussion. What?
On the culture and social aspects.
Yeah.
And, one must acknowledge the other person in whatever way he expresses his respect.
Okay.
And body language and cultural paradigm play a major role in greeting. And, some societies do not acknowledge shaking hands but give importance to oral greeting. So shaking hands be discouraged on health grounds as it spreads germs and diseases. Whatever is the method adopted, it must be suitable.
Very nice. Great summary. There are a lot of day on a new topic. What are some of the things we learned from their interaction? We have to ask questions. We have to monitor how much we speak and invite others and assert ourselves so that we can have a more balanced participation. Now the teacher's role is somewhat minimal here. Do you see what I mean? And that's what I like about it, right? Because the teacher plays a secondary role. If there's a problem, the teacher will intervene, yeah? Or if it stops, the teacher might intervene.
So, but how do we discourage the students who just want to speak and don't want to listen?
I think by giving them this feedback that you talked 7 times for 6 minutes out of 10 minutes. So it's not really a discussion. And hopefully then you internalize this. I mean, you've learned by watching how to make it work better, right? I mean, I don't think here's the thing, we're not going to punish a student for participating, right? But we want to make them more responsible that in a interaction like a discussion, it's not only your participation, it's the success of the whole group, and that depends on everybody having time to take turns, right? So basically, what we're learning here, it's not only what you're saying, it's the interaction. And that's what makes it a good academic discussion. And that's what we want to practice with our students, is them having this sort of interaction. Now, I think this works well for a large class, because you really wouldn't have more than 6 students. If you have 5, you'll have more even participation. When you get up to 6, someone's always left out, right? So you just pick 5, and then the next time you pick 5. You see what I mean? Questions or comments on this? And the only rule is the audience can't participate, right? They're not allowed to speak. Okay, you want to continue this discussion, or that's enough for this? I think it's enough, right? Okay, let's give them a hand. And then they go inside and outside. Okay, very nice job.
He's the trouble.
You are the.
That's funny, you know, when my wife's from Peru, they're used to kissing 2 times, every time. You come in the room, they kiss you. You leave, they kiss you. For her colleagues, everyone. And so in the United States, you know, we don't have the habit of kissing all the time. So at first she thought that the Americans very cold, you know. Strange. Here's some tea for you all. Yeah. Page 13, you have some of these processes of reading. So traditionally, in a more traditional context, we had the idea that here you have the text, the book, and the book had meaning, and the reader received the meaning. And what the teacher was doing was helping the reader understand the correct meaning, right? In more conceptual one, right? So we think of reading, writing, listening, speaking. We think of reading and listening as receptive, and writing and speaking as productive. But now, more contemporary scholarship frames all the skills as productive and interactive. In other words, when you read, it's not only that the text has meaning, I bring meaning to the text, and it's in that interaction as a reader, and you interact with the text, and you're not only reading this life into your lived experience. So, if we look here, Wilhelm has outlined different processes that involve that are activated when we read. So one of the first things is we activate background, what we know about reading, about the topic, bless you. So we sort of, somehow the teacher wants to warm us up as readers so that we enter the text with ready with what we know, okay? 2, we decode the text at the word level, sentence level, and at the discourse level. Now, many times we as teachers, we emphasize decoding. Maybe we overemphasize decoding, okay? And there's always been a big debate in U.S. education as to, there's been 2 parties. One is back to basics and one is whole language. Now the back to basics people will say, no, you can't engage in more sophisticated language unless you have the skills. So they'll focus on skills. And they'll focus on strategies, reading strategies. And another camp will say, no, you have to introduce them to this idea of meaning making, stories, writing. Do you see? And this has been a big controversy in the United States. A more conservative political agenda will say back to basics. And another more liberal progressive will say whole language. Now, in urban schools or schools of poverty, we tend to focus on basic skill, right? And in richer middle class communities, we focus on whole language, yes? But what we know is that you can't do one or the other. You have to do both. And let me just give you an example. If you're teaching a child football, soccer, that's it, soccer, what we call soccer. Even though they have very few skills, and you do skills, right? At the end of the practice, or the end of the week, they're going to play a game. Do you see what I mean? You can't only teach them skills. It's not motivating for the child. You let them try and play a game, even though you know they don't have the basic skills. Do you see what I mean? Because it's through playing that game that they sort of understand, oh, that's why I have to learn how to dribble. That's why I learned to do the throw-in. That's what it means offsides. Do you see what I mean? That you can't really understand those skills unless you provide the context of the game. Do you see what I mean? So it's the same thing with reading or with language. If we only teach grammar, basic skills, and we don't do reading and writing and this kind of discussion, then the student is not going to understand how I'm going to apply that grammar. For example, with this sort of discussion, a lot of times we're going to hesitate, right? We'll say, oh, my students don't have the skills. I want to teach grammar. But you have to do both. See what I mean? Even if this is not going to be that successful, you let them have a discussion, because it's through this that they understand the basic skill part. You know, they have to go together. You see what I'm talking about? But it's certainly true that in schools of poverty, or for rural schools, we focus on basic skills probably too much, because we have a deficit view of the children, what they don't know. We're focused on what they don't know, right? So if you're sending your child to a middle class school or an upper class school, and you're paying a lot of money, and the teacher only did basic skills, how would you feel? That she thought that your child was stupid, right? Yeah, I mean, it has to be more holistic than that. So we want to do both, okay? So that means that we do decoding, but not only decoding. We set a purpose for reading. Are we reading for pleasure, for information, in order to write, and so on? Now, what we mean by that is if you're studying for an exam, you read in a very different way than if you're reading a novel for pleasure, right? Or if you buy the VCR or the DVD player, you read the instruction manual in a very different way than you would another text, right? So it depends on what we're trying to achieve. We make predictions about what's going to happen. We visualize what we're reading. We ask questions. We summarize, monitor self-understanding. Have you ever read Wuthering Heights? By Bronson? You know, it's so confusing. At a certain point, you almost have to write down all the characters' names and who's related to who, else you don't understand it, right? So that's what we mean by monitoring understanding. Am I understanding this right? You compare with your friend. And you apply what you've learned. So in other words, reading is a very active process. It's not just receptive, right? The reader has to do a lot of things to make sense of the text. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to do 3 activities that involve theater, and they're a way of us interacting with the text in physical ways. Okay? So the first, hot seat, and we're going to do deer. Okay, these are the 3 strategies. And we'll use all 3 of these with the solitary reaper. Okay? So tableau means creating a picture. So when we can do the tableau as a warm-up or as a comprehension check. So let's do the tableau twice now. First as a warm-up. So before we begin reading the solitary reaper, we're going to do some theater activity. Go in a sort of a circle. You can stand up. Some of you can stand in the back. Go ahead, stand up. Some of you can stand with me in the front. So stand up so you can move around. Let's move out of your desk. Okay, some of you can come with me. January? Okay, December, January. It's December, January. The wheat is really high. Insect in the wheat field. It's summer, it's hot day, right? Nice and hot, sunny. And I want to see you and hear you. And when I touch you on the shoulder, you're going to tell me, okay, I'm a butterfly, right? Or I'm a bird, So we're going to see. So think of an insect or an animal. You're in the wheat field, hot day, the wheat's really tall. Okay, ready? Let's do it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, let's do it. I'm a fly. Let's see, what are you? Come on, lady. Pick a bird, pick an animal. Let's see, let me see. Okay, everybody. What are you? Good. Go. What are you? Grasshopper.
Only bird.
What kind of bird? What kind of bird? Small birds?
Which bird?
I don't see. Come on, let's start moving. Come on, let's move. Let's do it for 2 minutes. I want you to circulate and make the sound, and I'd like to see you. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, you can move. You can walk around. What are you? A butterfly. Okay, let's see you wait. What are you? Butterfly too? Okay. What are you? We're the workers. Okay. We're the workers. I want all the women to be the workers. You're gonna start cutting the wheat. Okay, get your tool. And the men, I want you to be these insects and animals. Okay, ladies, ready? We're gonna ready? Get your sit. Ready? Okay, ladies, come on. You're the animals. The animals, where's the man? Let's hear you. We don't hear you. Come on, ladies, let's start working. Get to work. Let's get to work. What about the man? Butterfly? Okay. All right, very good. We can sit down. So, all right, thank you very much. So, look, then I'm going to assign each group a stanza, and you're going to do a tableau. So here's the rule with the tableau. Each group will be a tableau. So all the group has to participate, right? And there's no talking. It's just physical, okay? You can have one person be the reader, but the rest have to be enacting what she's reading together, okay? That's the only rule. There's no talking amongst the participants. All right, so let's look at the poem and read it together.
Wordsworth. So I would like to read first stanza. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary highland lass, reaping and singing by herself, stop here or gently pass. Alone she cuts and binds the grain, and sings a melancholy strain. Oh, listen, for the vale profound is overflowing with the sound.
Continue.
No chant, more welcome notes to weary bands of travelers in some shady haunt among Arabian sands. A voice of thrilling never was heard in springtime from the cuckoo bird, breaking the silence of the seas among the farthest Hebrides. Will no one tell me what she sings? Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for old, unhappy, far off things and battles long ago, or is it some more humble lay, familiar matter of today, some natural sorrow, loss or pain that has been and may be again? Whatever the theme, the maiden sang, as if her song could have no ending. I saw her singing at her work, and over the sickle bending, I listened, motionless and still, and as I mounted up the hill, the music in my heart I bore, long after it was heard no more.
Very nice, nice. Okay, one thing I like to do, and this is going to segue into what we'll do in the afternoon, are 3 steps. The first step is identify repeated words. The 4 stanzas, identify repeated words. Now, when you identify repeated words, you're really looking at main ideas, okay? So, what words are repeated and how many times? Some of the words we know are not important, like the, a, right? These are just markers. But other words that are repeated again and again, and may be variations of the word, like song, singing, we could call this a repetition. They're going to point to a main idea. So in your groups, I want you to look through the 4 stanzas and tell me which words are repeated how many times. Okay? So look together. All right, y'all come on over here. Singing. How many times?
Singing for 2 times.
I mean total.
6 times.
So all of these words together, it's 6 times. More or less. Double check. What other words are repeated? Okay, so the whole thing we can say maybe 6. Okay, what other words are repeated?
Music also.
How many times? She and her, how many times? Her. Now normally this wouldn't be very important, but in this poem it is. How many times?
5.
Okay. Here, hers. Yes? How many times? Twice. Anything else that's repeated? They're just repeated like that. Because, you know, Wordsworth is very careful not to repeat words, right? So what we can say is when we see the word is repeated over and over, then we know that it's important. So just looking at the repetition of the poem, what is this poem about? These are main ideas. If these represent main ideas, what can we say the poem is about? A girl who sings. It's about a girl, the poem's about a woman who's singing. That's what the solitary reaper is about, basically, right? So already just by looking at the repetition, we can help the children. The very elementary step, and even the student who has very low language can find the repeated word. It's very automatic. So it's a good way to begin because everybody's going to be successful. Now, you're going to do, in the meantime, you're going to do some vocabulary building. There are a lot of words that are very strange here, right? Not going to know. So you're going to do some vocabulary building. We'll look at how we're going to do that. So you do all of this together. But this is a first step. Now, the next step is identify related, not necessarily a synonym. But when you put the words side by side, it generates a theme. For example, if I say banana, apple, mango, it's fruit. They're not synonyms, right? But if I say mother, father, daughter, grandmother, husband, what's that? Family. So what's the category? Okay, so we can say song, singing, music, what else? In the poem. Nightingale, cuckoo,
Pain, sorrow, melancholy.
Okay, so this might be a theme, right? Music, musical, or music. Chanting, chant. Okay, now in your group, identify maybe 2 or 3 more categories. So you're going to talk this over. This is more interpretive, okay? Looking at the poem, what words sort of belong together? Okay, and here's the thing. You identify this category and you have to say, what? So what's the category? Maybe solitude? Solitary, maybe? So this is like sadness, right? Sadness or introspection, okay?
Silence, motionless, still.
Silence,
Motionless,
motionless, still.
Here we can take solitude.
solitude.
Solitude. Okay, so here's another category. What's the relationship? Stillness, right? In there?
Great, sickle.
Sickle.
Cut, bind,
Cut.
bind,
By.
reap,
Reap. So maybe this is harvest. Harvest, right? Words related to the harvest. See any more themes?
Springtime, spring,
Okay.
springtime,
Maiden. Lass. Her. Sheep. What else? So a female. Female. Right? Female. Okay? So look, those are some of the themes. Now the last step is binary pairs or conflict. Now here, we're not talking about opposites necessarily, but two things that you put together that somehow create some sort of binary. For example, if we look at the poem, you have the binary of
a voice so thrilling was never heard.
Say again. A voice so thrilling was never heard. Okay, so you have this silence versus song. Okay, this is a binary. Silence and song. Right?
Stop here, gently pass.
Stop here, gently pass. Okay?
Vale and hill also.
Hmm?
Vale and hill.
Which stanza? Vale, Vale and Hill. And then you also have this I and she. Right? You have this binary. There's a separation. Okay, so that's just some things we would, okay, so for the teacher then, and for the students, this is a neat way of just beginning to analyze the poem, looking for patterns, and trying to understand what are their meanings, yes.
Most striking binary is pain and pleasure.
Where's that? Yeah, pain and pleasure, where's that?
Willing heaven was good.
In the thematic aspect.
Where's pain?
Regarding the thematic aspect.
Say again. Okay. So we want, okay, so you get, so those are some preliminary activities for the students to begin looking closely at the poem. Alright, now what we're going to do is each group, I'm going to assign a stanza. You're going to come to the front. One will be the reader and the rest are going to perform it. Now here's the thing, is that you're going to work together, so maybe all of you will be the woman. You see what I mean? You can have more than one woman if you want. Somehow you all have to have some roles. It's like street theater. Okay? So I want you to create what we call a tableau, a street theater sort of production, illustrating the stanza. So you all do stanza 1, this whole group. Stanza 1. Stanza 2. Stanza 3, stanza 4. So, one of you will be the reader, and the rest are the performers. And think street theater, okay? Now, the only thing is you can't talk. You can have sound effects, but no talk. Okay, so that's, maybe you're just going to have one. So, but then what are the rest going to be? It can be like a tree, it can be some birds. You like to say? Listen. Yeah. You have a star, you can make a green star. You can make a visual creation. So it's not drawing, but you're going to use theater instead of drawing. So you might have a moment singing. If you want, you could be the field where she's working. Someone can be a tree. Someone can be the sunshine, butterfly. You just create other roles. Okay, now look, if you want to practice, go ahead into the hallway. We're going to start in 5 minutes. If you want to practice, you can go in the hallway. Okay.
Battles long ago for
little bit flavor to this.
Only ourselves came outside for
Otherwise they won't get anything out of it.
But the plastic,
papers.
we can completely
Completely paper.
As the plaintiff numbers flow for old unhappy far off things, battles long ago, or is it some more humble lay?
No material,
Familiar matter of the day,
more welcoming
natural
notes
sorrow
to very
of
bands
pain
of
that has been created.
Why do you think a
What it is saying? Perhaps the plaintiff numbers will no one tell me what she is saying?
Remember
the first group? Wish you all the best.
all right, take it from here.
Little louder.
Okay, nice and loud.
Behold a single in the field, yon solitary highland lass, reaping and singing by herself. Stop here or gently pass. Alone she cuts and binds the grain and sings a melancholy strain. Oh, listen, for the veil profound is overflowing with the sound.
Great, I like it.
No nightingale did ever chant more welcoming notes to weary bands of travelers in some shady haunt. Among Arabian sands, a voice so thrilling never was heard in springtime from the cuckoo bird, breaking the silence of the seas among the farthest Hebrides.
Let's get the time. Okay. Alright, ready?
Okay, ready.
Will no one tell me what she sings? Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for old unhappy far off things and battles long ago. Or is it some more humble lay, familiar matter of today, some natural sorrow, loss or pain that has been and maybe again.
Alright, thank you. And then the final stanza,
బాగా చేయనందుకు బాగా చెప్పండి.
Whatever the theme the maiden sang, as if a song indeed, I saw her sing the sickle bending, a lizard still, and as I long after it was heard in the wall.
పండించడం సార్.
You can see if they're understanding the stanzas, right? And what I really liked here is that you applied it to an Indian context. Yes? Yes. So that was very nice. So the thing about this strategy that I really like is that many people can be successful. You know, some of your students maybe are shy to speak, maybe they don't feel they have the language skills, but because this is done as a group, the whole group can be successful. It's non-verbal, but you're demonstrating comprehension. Because a poem like this can be very intimidating for the students, right? It's so strange, it's so hard to read. So we want to try to engage them in this physical representation of the poem, all right? What do you think? Fun. Makes it fun, right? Because, all right, now let's continue with the dramatization. The next strategy is called hot seat. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring some of the characters from the poem to the front. And each of the characters is going to give an opening statement where she or he explains his point of view, and then the audience is going to ask questions, okay? So in this, sometimes you don't have that many characters. Like in this poem, there's really only 2 characters, right? The solitary maiden and the wanderer poet, okay? So this group, we're going to do it in groups. This group, pick one of you to be the solitary maiden, and you're going to help her prepare a short opening statement. I am the solitary maiden, this is why I'm singing, this is why I'm sad, etc., etc. Okay? This group, one man will be the wanderer, the poet. You're going to say, okay, I wrote this poem because I saw this woman, la la la. Okay? So you, now these 2 groups.